Good morning, Jordan Wigger, owner of Low Country Athletics. This is a little bit new. I got a new setup. I'm hoping to be able to do a lot more of these videos. We're going to talk to you guys about some topics and go a little bit more in depth on my thought on things. And today we are starting off with a hot topic. I'm sure that I'm not going to have any controversial opinions showing up in comments or anything like that, but we're talking about weight cutting today for high school wrestling. This topic comes up pretty much every single year, beginning of the season. You got high school coaches telling kids to cut a certain amount of weight, to get into a certain weight class. They're trying to build their team out, right? They're trying to get a plan for who's going to be at what weight class and how can they be the most competitive, okay? And oftentimes, I'll have parents that are coming to me and asking me about whether certain weight cuts are reasonable. So we're going to talk about it, right? The impetus for this video, the reason why I'm making it, is I had a parent come to me and they said one of the kids on the team is getting told that they need to cut from 152 pounds to 120 pounds, okay? I don't know what year this wrestler is, and I'm not really sure that that makes too much of a difference. But the season is around 3 to 4 months long, okay? And so to be clear for people who aren't familiar with wrestling, this coach is not asking that athlete to cut from 152 to 120 like one time. They're asking them to lose all that weight and then maintain that weight for about 3 to 4 months, okay? That weight loss is about 14.5% of body weight. And my general recommendations to people is 5% of body weight for a season-long weight maintenance plan. Anything past that, pound or two, whatever, but anything past that is unreasonable and is going to be detrimental to the athlete and their development long-term, okay? That's the issue at hand. For people who aren't aware, I have authority to talk on this subject. I was a 4-time state champ at Somerville High School. I was 170-something and 2. That's my high school record. I was undefeated for 3 years. I was a 7-time Fargo All-American. I was an NHSCA All-American. And I wrestled in D1 for about a year and a half before I burnt out really hard. And part of what I do now is try to give people information to help their kids not burn out once they get to whatever that next level is, right? How do you increase your kids' longevity in the sport? And also make sure they leave wrestling feeling good about the sport and not hating it and being frustrated with it or sad about where they finished or whatever, right? Outside of wrestling, my background, I coach Olympic weightlifting and powerlifting and sports performance now. I qualified for nationals for weightlifting in 2019. So I have experience in multiple sports at high level of competition. I've done weight cuts for both of those sports that I've competed in. I have a lot of experience with this. I really want to explain about how silly this decision is. And I have a little graph. Those of you who know me, you know I love whiteboards. We're going to talk about this here, right? I got this little guy set up. Right, there's a nice up close. Basically, if you have your general ability, right, over time, and let's just say this is over the course of the season, right? So we got a 3 or 4 month season. As time goes on, your wrestler should be getting better, right? Stronger, faster, more coordinated, better technique, better math sense, all those things, right? They should be generally, right, general ability, getting better over time. The problem is that weight cuts really damage your wrestler's ability to adapt, okay? That's really what we're getting into with why this is so bad. So let's say we have a 10% weight cut. Initially, you're going to see a big drop in ability as that actual weight cut takes place. They're going to be lethargic. They're going to be able to focus less. They're going to have less energy for, not even for competition, but just for general practice, right? You're going to get less out of every practice. You're going to get less out of every weight training session. You're going to get less out of every cardio session, right? Every single thing gets impacted negatively. Not to mention schoolwork or any of those other things. Their general mood, their ability to handle social situations well, not be irritable, all that stuff, okay? General development of kids. And you can see we go down, right, pretty heavily, and maybe you still get a little bit better, but look at this gap at the end, okay? This is all arbitrary. This is an example, but you want to end out the season being way better than you were, not maybe a little bit better. Like this is a mistake, especially if your kid's freshman or sophomore. This is not in their best interest, right? And this is not in the high school coach's best interest either, right? We're sacrificing short-term this year's team for long-term development of a kid who could be a monster by the time that they're a junior or senior, as long as you develop them well instead of chopping their knees out from under them early on. That's not even to say somebody who's making multiple weight cuts, right? You have somebody that's cutting once, and they get a little bit better. If somebody's continually cutting over and over and over again, they're not getting better. They're going to be getting worse, right? If this weight cut is so much that they have to multiple times really manage their weight with a big cut, not eating as much, water cutting, sweats, runs, all that kind of stuff, okay? I think I've harped enough on the graph, all right? Well, let me move on, okay? I'm going to give you guys a specific example. I'm not going to name names, but I have a wrestler. When they finished wrestling in the summer after their 8th grade year, they were 148 pounds, okay? Fit, strong, maybe not crazy lean, right? We're not talking like sub 10% body fat, but definitely like under 15% body fat. Not like, you know, a kid that's a little chubby, you know, whatever. It's not that situation, okay? There are situations where maybe a kid's a little chubby and they lean way out for a weight cut for the season and then they do really well. That's a separate thing, right? That's not what we're talking about. And even then, like, that's a 14.5% weight cut is still ridiculous. It's not manageable. It's still unreasonable. I still think that's going to be detrimental in almost every single case, right? There may be some few exceptions out there, but this is a general statement. Now that disclaimer's out of the way, so we take this 148 kid that's coming into their freshman year, they cut down to 120 for that year, and the entire season they're having problems, right? They got a shoulder issue, they got a knee problem that was fine and is now coming back and recurring, right? Every single practice, something's happening. They're dinging their hand, right? They're seeing stars, right? Because they're dehydrated and defueled. So anytime they hit their head, they're at a higher risk of a concussion, okay? Injury risk goes up so much that it's crazy, right? People, a lot of the times when they're trying to tell you that weight cuts are going to be good, they're giving you only the positives, but there's all these negative costs that are associated with weight cuts that they're not telling you about. And they may not even be like admitting to themselves that those costs are going to be there, but that doesn't change the fact that they're there. 2 years later, this wrestler just now is exceeding the weight from after their 8th grade year. So you're telling me that we got a kid in middle school that weighs more than they do in high school until they're a junior, right? That's 2 years. And they didn't really cut, like this first year they cut down to 120. The next year they didn't really manage their weight as much. They took more time off. They ate back up. So now they're back up to where they were. But it took 2 years. 2 years of development. 2 years where we could have gotten stronger. We could have gotten faster. We could have been working harder, right, in all of our sessions. And now we've lost that progress because of this mistake. And it is a mistake. High school coaches, if you're telling your kids to do this, it is a mistake. There is no getting around this issue. There is no, oh, well, maybe. No, it's wrong. You're doing a bad job. Your job is to develop kids into good athletes, to help them progress. You want them leaving high school the best possible athlete that they can be, especially if they're trying to go college and be D1 and all this stuff. Your job is to develop them, not only as a person, right, but as an athlete. And if you're telling them to cut this much weight, you are not doing a good job. What are you doing this for? Are you just trying to make the best team that you can every single year so that you can have a bragging? Like, I know you're not getting paid that much. High school coaches down here in South Carolina, they don't get paid a lot of money for wrestling. It's not for the money, right? You're just messing kids' development up just to make yourself, feel better? So you have some bragging point of how good you got the team or whatever? Like, stop. This is a mistake. Okay? There's no getting around it. There's no beating it and explanations. No, you're wrong. Just flat out. Like, I don't have any more, I'm tired of having this discussion, okay? I'm blowing up a little bit. Every single year, I feel like I have to talk to people about this. And you should know better. You're an adult. You should know better. That's all I got to say about it. That's it for today. I know this one was a little spicy. Hopefully, future talks won't be so animated. I won't be so frustrated about the topic. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate your time if you stayed around to the end of this. I don't know how this is going to end up. I'm going to, chop it up and maybe I'll put in a couple different pieces or whatever. But if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. That's all I got. I'll have a good day.